Okay, guys, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Our guest speaker today is Patrick Chery, and I'm going to read his bio, okay? So Patrick is a John Maxwell certified executive coach, teacher, and leadership consultant. He is certified by John Maxwell, who has been the #1 leadership expert in the world for the last 10 years. In this capacity, he offers workshops, seminars, coaching, and consulting services to accelerate your personal and professional growth. Through the study and practical application of John's proven leadership methods. In simple terms, he helps and facilitates transformation that translates into more success for your life and your business. So without further ado, here goes Patrick Chery.
Thank you very much, Briana. I'm not sure that was my bio. Was that really me?
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys for being on here. So this is a topic that I'm very passionate about. It's something that has helped me significantly in my growth as a person, as well as a professional. And I just want to share my thoughts with you on this topic, your self-image.
One last thing, Patrick, before you start. As the students have questions, you guys feel free to ask on camera. You can also ask in the chat, and anything that comes in the chat, Patrick, I'll read it off to you.
Sounds good. So what is your self-image? So your self-image is the how you see yourself, essentially, is the vision you have for yourself, your appearance, and your abilities. So when we see your self-image, so what do you see in yourself? Your self-image comes from your experience, what you experience in your life, because that shapes your self-image. It also comes from the judgment that you receive from others, and also your circumstances in life. So all those three things are what shapes your self-image. So let's say if I'm someone who's very shy, maybe when I was young, somebody put me in front of a crowd and then they laughed at me. And then now I have my self-image is that I'm a poor public speaker. Or maybe I experienced some sort of trauma when I was younger and I'm claustrophobic because maybe I was trapped in the closet or something of that nature. So those things determine your self-image. But the main thing I want to share with you today is that your self-image is the #1 indicator of your success, or the #1 factor that will determine your success. Because there's a saying that says, if you think you can do it, or you think you can't do it, either way you're right. Because what you think ultimately becomes what you become. So this is the main point I want to share with you today, and want to get that message passed on to you today. So usually, if I was doing this in a live class, I would ask the participants to think of someone who they see as someone who's successful. So maybe in the chat, you can type who you think as someone who's a success. And then I would also ask you to write, who do you think, or who do you know, who comes to mind that is someone that is very attractive. And then the third thing I would ask is, who comes to mind, who can you think of as someone would you say who has a great personality? And normally, when I ask those questions in live class, the attendants will think of someone other than themselves. So this is like a quick test that I will do to test someone's self-image, because most of the times, we don't think of ourselves as someone who's successful. We don't think of ourselves as someone who has great personality or as someone who's attractive, because part of that is maybe because when we're growing up, people tell us we weren't. So then we believe that. So we took on that because that's someone's judgment that they passed on us. So we took that, and that became our self-image. So with that being said, I just want to go through some popular figures that we may know that we may or may not agree has some positive self-image. So for instance, our former president, President Barack Obama, to go from where he came from and ultimately become the most powerful person in the world, you have to have a strong self-image to become that person. So that's why we say your self-image is the #1 indicator of your success. Another person is Usain Bolt, the fastest person alive. So to become the fastest person alive, you have to have a strong self-image. You have to have a strong belief in yourself. And he had to see himself as the fastest person in order to become the fastest person. So that's another aspect of self-image, is that you have to be able to see yourself as that person that you want to be in order for you to. But if you can't see it for yourself, it'll be almost impossible to become that person. Another person is, of course, Michael Jordan, that's virtually globally recognized as the greatest athlete or the greatest basketball player ever. Even to this day, he still oozes with confidence. So he wouldn't have been that person if he had not the self-image that he could be the greatest basketball player ever. Same thing here with Stephen Curry. So he's recognized as the greatest shooter who ever lived, well, basketball shooter. Let me put that in perspective. So And we can tell by the way he plays the game that he has a lot of confidence. He plays he has a great self-image. So just wanted to highlight some popular figures that we may recognize that we can identify as people who have a positive self-image. So I just want to take some time to make the distinction between your self-image, your self-esteem, and your ideal self. As I've been saying, so your self-image is how you see yourself, your personality, your values, your appearance, and your self-esteem. The distinction between your self-esteem and your self-image. Your self-image is how you view yourself, but your self-esteem is the value you place on yourself or your self-worth. Because oftentimes we often hear people say, well, this person has a low self-esteem. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but it's the value that the person puts in itself. Your ideal self is how you wish you were like. So a lot of us, maybe you wish you were taller, you were more athletic, you were prettier, had a greater personality. This is what we say is your ideal self. So just wanted to make the distinction between those three things. So how do you discover your self-image? So one of the main thing that determines your self-image is what you think about yourself. Is that internal conversation that you have with yourself. We're constantly talking to ourselves. The thing is, it's silent because we're not verbalizing, for the most part, when we talk to ourselves, we're not verbalizing it. And I remember one time one of my mentors told me, if he was to hire someone to walk around with a microphone to verbalize what you said to yourself, you'll be embarrassed because we are our harshest critic. And we talk worse to ourselves than we would allow anybody else to talk to us. And I remember I had a friend, she's very successful, she's a doctor. And every time I'm around her, and she will say, well, I'm so stupid. And I'm like, why do you keep saying that? She was like, do you believe it? She was like, no, it's just a habit. So she didn't realize what she was saying, but so it was almost like an affirmation. She kept telling herself that she was stupid, but I know she's not stupid, but she didn't believe it. But the thing is, if you keep saying it, ultimately you're gonna believe it. So another way that affects our self-image is what people think about us. So we know many people that they say, well, maybe when they were younger, their parents or their teacher or somebody told them they would never amount to anything in life. And they took that, and then that ultimately became who they become because they believe in it. And sad reality is someone's opinion of you or someone's negative opinion of you doesn't have to become your reality. So it's just one person's opinion. There's almost 8 billion people in the world right now. So if somebody doesn't think you're good enough or you're pretty enough, you're attractive enough, it's just one person. That's just one person's opinion. Other things is also how you respond to life situations. So sometimes this is somebody who grew up, maybe their father weren't around. So as part of their self-image, they made a commitment that they're going to make sure that their kids doesn't experience that. So they're going to be as good of a father as they can be for their kids. So that situation affects their self-image. Or maybe they grew up in a situation where they had to struggle. So now when they're successful, they make a commitment to give back to their community, serve the community, to help others that were in the situations that they were in when they were growing up. So all those things affect someone's self-image. So I really like this picture because it says, what do you see in yourself? And then this is the essence of your self-image. So as you can see in this picture, this cat is looking in the mirror and sees a lion. So this is if we were to put ourselves in that situation, it's like when you stand in front of the mirror, what do you see? Do you see someone who's confident, someone who's happy, someone with a great character, great personality, or do you see someone maybe who's a failure, or someone who's not up to standard, or someone who's desiring something that they wish they have? So all those things play into who you become because they're essentially your self-image. Like another great example that I can use to explain your self-image is the thermostat in your home. So in your house, the thermostat is what regulates the temperature. So I'm assuming most of us are in Florida. So especially in the summertime, it gets extremely hot. So comfortable temperature is probably 72, 75 degrees. So depending on your comfort, you may set the thermostat in your home to, let's say, 72 degrees. But if it's 90 degrees outside, let's say you have one of the windows open, so the thermostat will kick in and the air conditioning unit will start blowing cold air into the room. And it will do that until it brings the temperature back to 72. And if, let's say you open all the windows, all the doors, it will keep working to bring the temperature back to 72 until two things will happen. Either the temperature in the room will stabilize at 72, or the uni will just blow up because it can't sustain that. So that's why we say you will never consistently outperform your self-image. So you may have heard, let's say, maybe another good example is someone wins the lottery and they become rich overnight. So they haven't had the self-image of a wealthy person. So they haven't developed the skills to manage money. So they had a habit of, let's say, for instance, a struggling person. So when they all of a sudden overnight gain access to millions of dollars, they still have those same habits they had when they were poor. So they live with millions as if they were poor, because so they just spend all that money and then they go right back to where they were. So that's why we say you will never consistently outperform your self-image, because the moment you start getting into that zone, it's just like when the temperature in the room goes to like 75, 77 degrees, thermostat kicks in, it brings it back to where it's supposed to be. So if you don't see yourself as a success, you may experience success every now and then, but ultimately it's going to bring you back to where your self-image is set to. So that's why your self-image is so important, so it's so critical. And I love this quote by, as you can tell, I'm a basketball fan, love Michael Jordan. So he says, obstacles don't have to stop you. If you run into a wall, don't turn around and give up. Figure it out, climb it, go through it, or work around it. That is a thought of someone with positive self-image. They're determined to be successful. So they're saying nothing is going to stop me. If I have to go through it, go over it, go around it, I will do whatever it takes for me to be successful. And this is also a myth when it comes to your self-image and success. So you can succeed if nobody in the world believes in you, but you will never succeed if you don't believe in yourself. Essentially, what is that? It's saying the whole world can be against you and you can still succeed. Like another idea that I like about this is someone says, in order for you to be president of the United States, to become the most powerful man or woman, when we get a woman president in the world, all you need is 51% of the country to vote for you. So let's say a country of 300 million, you just need 51%. So you don't need 99% of the people to vote for you. You just need 51%. So another self-image is how you see yourself determines how others see you. So if I see myself as someone who's shy, who's timid, who's hesitant, others are probably going to see me that way. They're probably not going to see me as a leader, as someone who takes initiative. Just the same way, if I'm someone who's takes initiative, who's bold, who's active, who's engaged in my work or in other environments, people are going to see me that way. So how I see myself is how others see me, and vice versa. How others see me, sometimes how I see myself. Maybe someone says, well, you shy, or you too calm, you soft, or whatever label they put on us. Sometimes those labels can, if we're not careful, we could allow those labels to become our reality. And also how you see yourself determines your future. If you see yourself, I like to tell the story. When I was in middle school, one time, I think either it was an assignment or an exam that I took. I turned it in, and the teacher gave me a B, but I felt like I should have gotten an A, and I got upset. In school, I didn't know about self-image, but that was my self-image, that I'm a smart person, so I get A's. So I was upset when I got a B, so I went and had an argument with the teacher, because that was how I saw myself, and I felt like she cheated me out of the A. I should have gotten a B. So the same way, you probably know somebody, because like even when I was in school, I had friends that were like that. So because it's maybe starting to as these students, so if they get an A, they're shocked themselves, they're surprised. So they perform outside of their self-image, and then maybe the next assignment they get a C, or vice versa. Someone who gets a C, they may be upset. They say, well, I'm not a C student. I don't get C's. So now they go and maybe they have to study harder. They may do what's necessary so they can improve their test score so they can get back to an A. So this is one of the quotes that I like from my mentor, John Maxwell. He says, I've watched many who achieve success beyond their self-image literally sabotage themselves in their success because they did not feel comfortable and they did not believe they were good enough. So this goes back to the point that I was making, is that ultimately you go back to your self-image. Your self-image is that thermostat. So the temperature in the room may get to 80 degrees, 90 degrees, but ultimately the thermostat gonna kicks in and bring it back to 70 degrees. So if you see yourself as a success, whatever you don't see yourself as, you may have glimpses or instances where you perform outside of that norm, but ultimately you would never consistently outperform that self-image. So if we're putting this in the example of students, if you don't see yourself being a successful college student, graduating high school and college, and having a successful career, that will never happen. Maybe you might get into college, but maybe within the first year, first semester, you will drop out or you will give up. I had friends when I got to college, I saw a lot of friends that I went to college with that dropped out because for whatever reason. So that's why this is so important. And that's why I want to share this message with you about how important it is to develop a positive self-image. So we have something that we call the law of self-image. So let's say if your self-image on a scale from 1 to 10 is a 5, you would never perform or accomplish anything higher than a 4. So because we see the 5 is like the ceiling. So if you start accomplishing things at level 4, you're gonna hit that ceiling, so you will never go any higher. So the only way you can be more successful is to increase or develop a more positive self-image. So you go from a 4 to a 5 to a 5 to a 6. And as you do that, as you increase your self-image, you become more successful. So if you look at most successful people in the world, they have very, very positive, strong self-image. Whether it's, let's say, the founder of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, or founder of Tesla, Elon Musk, or anybody, even people in your family, your parents, your cousins, people that you know, relatives that are successful, they have positive, strong self-image. So this is very, very important for you to understand. Like, I wish when I was in high school or even in college, I knew about this, because I didn't know how important it is, because I was just going through life, and then I realizing that there's certain laws that applies to my success. Because if you don't see yourself in a certain way, it's almost impossible for you to do that. So what are some of the things that define your self-image? So as I mentioned before, your self-talk. So we're constantly talking to ourselves. Even when we're not verbalizing it, we're talking to ourselves. When we're thinking, we're talking to ourselves. And the most important conversation you have is the conversation you have with yourself. And what's tricky about that is, because it's not being verbalized, oftentimes it goes unnoticed on the surface, but subconsciously it takes its effect. So for instance, somebody calls me unattractive or stupid or whatever else, because I hear it come from somebody else, I'm going to automatically reject it. But if I'm saying it to myself or I'm thinking it, most of the time I don't reject it. So it just goes straight into my subconscious. And then if I do it over and over and over, it becomes an affirmation. And we know words have power. So your thoughts become things, and words have power. So what you think about continuously ultimately become your reality. As I mentioned before, your life situations and life events, all that define your self-image, and also how you respond to what happened to you. So there's a saying that says, life is only 10% what happens to you and 90% how you respond. So this is more speaks to you not playing the victim role. So life is not fair. Bad things happen to everyone. So, but you cannot control what happens to you. The only thing you can control is how you respond. So this has to do with how you take control of your life. And everybody who's ever been successful, they had to overcome challenges. So you can look at the challenges and make an excuse, or you can look at the challenges, decide that you're going to be more successful. And then the last thing I want to mention about that is others' judgment. So people are always judging us and passing on judgment. And what we cannot allow is allow one person's judgment to define what we become. So someone may say you'll never be anything in life. So you can take that, internalize it, and believe it, and allow that to become your reality. Or you can say, well, I'm going to prove you wrong, and use that as motivation to allow you to be more successful. Your self-worth, just as we talk about your self-esteem, is how you view yourself and how they see you. And as I keep saying it over and over again because I know how important it is. Your experience does not define who you are. You can allow that to hold you back, or you can use that as fuel, as motivation to get you to where you want to be, where you want to go. So remember, it's only 10% what happens to you. It's 90% how you respond. So you have control over how you respond and how you take control of your life. So to develop a positive self-image, you have to see value in yourself. If you don't see value in yourself, you're not going to invest in yourself. You're not going to add value to yourself. You're not going to take your education seriously. You're not going to maybe read books, or you're not going to take going to college seriously. You're not going to take your job seriously because you don't feel like you're worth it. So when you feel like you're worth it, you're going to take the time, you're going to make the investment, you're going to make commitment to develop yourself so you can be more successful. So your self-image determines your behavior. So say your thinking determines your behavior, which determines your habits, which determines your actions, that ultimately determine your results. Your thinking or your self-image determines your behavior, which determines your thinking, your actions, and ultimately your results. So if you know that equation, if you're not liking the result that you're getting, then you can go back to the equation and see what do you need to change, what do you need to improve so you can get the results that you want. And again, I hope I'm not being repetitive, but I'm doing that because I know it's so important. You would never consistently outperform your self-image. If you don't see yourself as what you desire, like you may get there every now and then, but you'll not consistently get there. Because you may have that instance of brilliance or success, but ultimately it's going to take you back to where you belong. So, but then again, if you can change that, you can improve your self-image, so you can create a new normal, so you can achieve the life and success that you want. And I love this quote also. It says, if you place a small value on yourself, rest assured the world will not raise that price. Quick story I would share with you about that. I was working for a company, I got let go of them. I was very disappointed because I was supposed to be getting promoted and I got fired, and my self-esteem, my self-image took a hit. And while I was interviewing, I remember I was on the phone with an HR person, and she was talking about my experience, and she was asking me, well, what's your desired salary? So I took I referenced my past salary, and then I put some number on it, what I thought was maybe outside of my range. And then she was like, no, like you need to add, you worth much more than that. You're much more valuable than that. You need to add much more to that number. And that was like a life-changing moment for me. And so the next person that called me for an interview, when they asked me my salary, I doubled it. I doubled what I was making before. And what ended up happening is that the next job that I got, I essentially doubled it because I was putting a value on myself that was much lower than what I deserved. So the last one I talked to, they saw that and they were like, well, this person doesn't know his worth. I don't know if I want to bring that person to my company. So sometimes we feel like, okay, well, we don't want to be asking for too much. No, the price that you put on yourself is what the world's going to give you. So thank God that person spoke to me and says, well, you need to really find out what your worth is. But because I went to that experience, my confidence was shaky. But after she gave me that pep talk, so the next instance, I got the results that I wanted. But had that never happened, I would have never been in that situation. So if someone say maybe your price is too high, or you think too much of yourself, maybe like remember what I said, it's just one person's opinion. It's just that one person's opinion. So don't allow one person thinking of you or perception of you to ultimately become your reality. So you can always change that. You can always become better. So I'm going to go through these very quickly. Just a few steps that you can take to build your self-image. Remember what I've been saying is guard your self-talk. How you talk to yourself is very important. So one of the things that you can say is, I like myself. or I can do it. So you can just Google like positive self-affirmations. There's a list of different things. So there's certain areas that you want to develop positive self-image in, you can find that. You can do affirmations. But one of the two best ones you can do is maybe every morning you wake up, you go and stand in front of the mirror and says, I like myself, or I can do it. So when you do that, it builds your confidence, it builds your self-image. Number two, don't compare yourself to anyone. So the issue with that is, if I compare myself with someone who's better than me, then I feel less secure, less confident. So it's like giving me a false sense of self-image. Or if I compare myself with someone who I'm better, who I'm better than, that also give me a false sense of confidence and self-image. So that's why we say don't compare yourself to anyone, because either way you get a false gauge on your self-confidence. So when you add value, so right now, a lot of people are in need. So when you volunteer, when you give back, when you serve, that boosts your self-confidence. So when you do something for somebody else, it makes you feel better about yourself. It makes you feel like you're contributing to society. Another thing that you can do to boost your self-image is do the right thing. When you do what's right, it does something to you emotionally. And you don't have to worry about maybe judgment or consequences because you're doing what's right. So that's another way you can boost your self-image. So you can do something daily. Maybe you say, I'm going to read for 5 or 10 minutes a day. Do something. So in the military, one of the things that they do, so when soldiers first wake up in the morning, the first thing they teach them to do is make their bed as a way to get a small win to build their confidence. So maybe for you it's different. Figure out one small thing that you can do every day to build your self-confidence. And also number 6, sometimes we're looking to celebrate the home run or the slam dunk. So we don't realize that it's the small successes that leads to big victories. So oftentimes, well, this is a small win and we're not going to celebrate. So no, you can celebrate the small win. So maybe for you, a small win is just, you know what, I've been stuck in the house all day. Like we talked before we started, I'm just going to go for a walk outside for 10, 15 minutes. Maybe for you, that's a big win because you go outside, walk, you get some fresh air and clear your mind. So don't neglect to celebrate the small victories. Number 7, embrace the positive image you see for yourself. Think of who you would like to become. Maybe you want to be someone who's engaging, has a great personality, someone who's outgoing, someone who's fit. So someone who has an attractive personality, someone who's a public speaker, who's not afraid of speaking in the public. So all those things, someone who's rich. So whatever it is, that image you want of yourself, write it down and taking the steps to become that person. And also take responsibility of your life. Ultimately, it's your responsibility. Your success is your responsibility. So regardless of the environment that you're in or what happens to you, remember, whatever happens to you, it's only 10%. The 90 is your control. It's up to you. And also, you got to move out your comfort zone. And if I can share this with you, when I was younger, I would never thought I would be a public speaker because the self-image that I had was like, not only that I had of myself, but also people had of me was that I was shy. I was afraid of being in public. So whenever I was in school or maybe in a church play, whenever I'd go do my part, I would be shaky, I'd be terrified because I didn't think that I could be a good speaker. But because that was the self-image that I had, but I kept putting myself outside of my comfort zone, so I had to stretch that belief. We call it breaking through a mental barrier. So it wasn't that I was a bad public speaker, it's just that because I had that image, so like I said earlier, what you think, ultimately become. Because I thought I was a bad speaker, so when I get in front of people to speak, I'll exhibit that behavior. Then it's like when you think of something and you believe it, it's almost like if a student feel like they're not a good student, so all they think about is they're gonna fail their test. So their mind is gonna produce that reality and answer and say, "Why? See what happens? I failed the test, so I know I wasn't a good student." So that was the same thing that was happening to me. So because I thought I was a bad speaker, so when I had to do a book report or presentation in class, I'll be so nervous and I'll do poorly, and then I'll prove to myself that I was a bad speaker, which reality I wasn't. So I had to take the steps necessary to break through that barrier. Another thing you can do is just get a win. Regardless of how small it is, because when you get a win, it makes you feel good about yourself. I think I heard earlier, Briana mentioned that there's going to give a gift card. So I guarantee you, whoever wins the gift card is going to feel good about themselves. So when you get a win, you feel good about yourself. And as I mentioned earlier, you got to get out your comfort zone. Try to do something that puts you out of comfort zone. So one of the questions I like to ask when I'm coaching people or when I'm talking to people in general is like, when was the last time you did something for the first time? because that's putting yourself out of your comfort zone. One of the best ways for you to stretch yourself and be better and develop a more positive self-image is to do things outside of your comfort zone. So for instance, if you feel like you are afraid of speaking in public, so start taking advantage of opportunities. So when you're in class, raise your hand up to volunteer, to share your thoughts, to give a presentation. Because the thing is, the more you do something, the better you become at it. So let's say if you take that same example, if you're terrified or afraid of public speaking, the more you stand in front of people and speak, you become desensitized by it. So it becomes normal for you. And then the first time you might be shaky, but the 100th or the 500th times you do it, it's going to be normal, like as if you're talking to your best friend on the phone or in person. So that fear eventually will go away. So, and also with self-image, it comes to also come with the physical aspect of it. Taking care of your emotional health, your physical health, your mental health, and being well-groomed. So I don't know about you, when I put on a suit, I just feel much better instantly. Maybe for a lady, when you put on a dress or your favorite dress, you probably just something about when you dress up makes you feel better about yourself. So those are some of the things that you can do to develop a more positive self-image. Other things that you can do is have confidence in your abilities. I think that's self-explanatory. So if you, maybe if you're on track, your confidence that you're the fastest person on the team, and that boosts your confidence, that boosts your self-image. Something that's also very important is embrace who you are, self-acceptance. And sometimes that's the hardest thing for us to do because we're conditioned to think that we're never enough. Something is missing, but you are enough. When you were born with everything you needed to be who you are. So a lot of times we can allow, and that's why I talk about self-judgment earlier, because we're in a world that people are very critical of us, and we can allow others' judgment of us to make us hate ourselves and not accept ourselves. But that, for most people, that's what keeps them from being successful, because they give more priority to what other people think of them, other people's perception of them, than they do of themselves. And that's, for a lot of people, that's a great barrier. Also, have a positive attitude. Optimism, maintain optimism. When you have a positive attitude, it helps you. Like, one of the things you can say, again, says you can just say, I like myself. If you keep saying it, it's hard for you to say, I like myself, and have a frown on your face. Because, like, maybe the first time, but if you do it 4 or 5 times, eventually you're going to start smiling because it boosts your confidence. As I mentioned, there's no one in the world, there's 8 billion people, 7.5 billion people. Not one other person in the world is like you. You are an original. No one in the world has your character, your personality, your features. You are unique. But oftentimes we can allow other people to make us feel like we're a copy or spare parts or just one of, but you're just as unique as you could be. So don't allow people to diminish your self-worth, your value, because sometimes when people hate themselves, they're trying to project that on you. When people judge you, it's not necessarily because of you, it's because they have something that's missing in them, and they're trying to project that on you. I know I'm running low on time, so I'll try to wrap it up the next few minutes. So some of the things you can do to boost yourself is, what do you like about your life? Maybe you have a beautiful smile, personality, character. So you can tell what people tell you. So just, or maybe you just start journaling. So, well, every day I'm going to write one thing I like about my life. Or what makes you feel special, what talent that you have. Maybe you have great friends. Maybe you have a special talent. Maybe you have a family that love you. Maybe you have a favorite toy or pet or a hobby. What is it that's special about you? What's something positive that you can do, whether it's for your family, your neighbors, your community? Because when you do those things, it boosts your self-image. What do you do well? What talents do you have? When was the last time you experienced a win, or you did something wonderful, something positive? So all those things, when you think of those things, or maybe you went, you had a great memory, maybe it was your birthday recently. So all those things, when you think about those things, it boosts your confidence. It makes you feel better about yourself. And I really like this quote because this is pure gold. It says, whether you think you can or you can't, either way you are right. So what you think of ultimately becomes your reality. What you think ultimately becomes your reality. And there's no debate about that, because if you think you can, you will do it. If you think you can't, you won't do it. It's that simple. There's a few questions for you to consider. It's like, what are you doing to improve your self-image? Maybe you read a book, you pick up a new skill, maybe you take some time to reflect and meditate. Maybe you just go outside and go for a walk. I mean, like, there's so many things that you can do. Or maybe you can do something for your mom, for your parents. When you serve, volunteer, add value to others. Maybe you can attend a workshop like this, or other workshop that Junior Achievement provide, or other resources. Maybe you can Google, find classes online. But what I want to really ask is that, what are you willing to make? Knowing that the #1 indicator of success is a positive self-image, what are you willing to do? What sacrifices are you willing to make to develop a positive self-image? That's very, very important. And this is my thought that I'll share with you before I wrap it up. If you knew you could not fail, if success was guaranteed, what would you do? What would you attempt? What would you try to accomplish? Because success is there for you. It starts in your mind. It starts with, if you think you can do it, you develop that self-image, you take actions, it will ultimately be yours. And again, I would say this as I wrap up, the greatest indicator of your success is your self-image, because you will never consistently outperform your self-image. Going back to that first example with the thermostat, the room may get to 90 degrees or 80 degrees, but ultimately it will bring it back to 72. But you can adjust it. So I used to live in DC. In the wintertime, it gets very, very cold. So I can adjust it, because maybe sometimes it's like in the 20s outside, so 72 is too cold inside. I mean, maybe raise it to like 79. But if I go outside and leave the door open, it will blow more hot air to raise the temperature in the room to 79. So you will never consistently outperform your self-image. So the way to become more successful is to develop a more self-image.
Hi.
Thank you very much. Yes.
What is that? Does someone have questions? Okay, there we go. Okay, so Patrick, there's a few questions in the chat box that I'm gonna read to you.
Okay.
Okay, so the first question is, how did you discover your self-image?
I discovered, the way I discovered my self-image is when I was getting mentored by my mentor. And while he was mentoring, by the questions he was asking me, when I was telling what I wanted to be in life, what I wanted to accomplish, and he can tell that there was a missing link. I didn't necessarily believe that. So that's how he introduced me to the concept of self-image, because he can see that I never had the vision, even though I wanted to do it, but then I didn't actually believe it. Just like, it was almost like a wish. So that's when he introduced me to self-image. And also he had me read a book by Dr. Maxwell Maltz, and the title is Psycho-Cybernetics. So if you can see it here, that's really the title of the book. It's a wonderful book, Psycho-Cybernetics. It's all about self-image.
Okay. The next question, I think you might have answered this within your presentation, but they want to know, how do you improve your self-esteem, and how do you look back at your mistakes?
The way to improve your self-esteem is to introduce positive thoughts and positive ideas. So for instance, as I mentioned, maybe you can start doing affirmations. So start writing. So another point that I can share with you, so there's a study that was done that said, if you ask people to write their strengths and their weaknesses, they will write 5 times as many weaknesses as strength. So naturally, we have a proclivity to be harder on ourselves. So one of the things you can do to boost your self-image is start writing what you like about yourself. your character, your personality, your gifts, your talents, and sometimes what other people say about you. Maybe people will say you have a beautiful smile. People say you're very intelligent. So you start doing those things, that will also help increase your self-esteem and your self-image. But one of the ways to also do that is to not allow people's judgment of you affect what you think about yourself. Because most of the time, the negative judgment is just false. It's because the person is just projecting their own self-judgment onto you, if that makes sense.
I think that your answer kind of answers this next question too. What are some exercises people can practice to improve their self-image?
If you Google, I can find a list and maybe send it to you, share with the group. But if you just Google positive self-affirmations, one of the best ways to do self-affirmations, it's like a way of reprogramming your mind. So if we think of a computer system, so if you have bad thoughts, one of the ways to get rid of those thoughts is to introduce good thoughts. So if you think of a computer system, a computer, if it has a virus, let's say the virus has the bad thoughts or low self-esteem, low self-image. So you had to wipe the old system, operating system, and re-download or reintroduce a new one. So when you do the affirmations, it's like a way of you reprogramming yourself. When you say, I like myself, I can do it, I'm beautiful, I'm smart, I'm intelligent, I'm going to have a great personality. So we start doing it over and over again, because remember, as I said, your thinking, behavior, which determines your action. So by you doing that, you're like you programming yourself to be successful, to have a positive self-image, to have a positive self-esteem.
Okay. The next question asks, how do you get yourself to truly believe what you're saying?
Again, so when I first started, one of the things that my mentor told me is that, first of all, you don't need anybody to believe in you, you just have to believe in yourself. And the other thing he told me, which I had never heard before, is that if you don't believe in yourself, you can borrow my belief until you develop the belief in yourself. So we all can find that one person that believes in us. So if you don't believe in yourself, find that one person and borrow their belief. Maybe it's your parents, maybe it's your cousin, your brother. Find that one person who says, so you know what, I'm going to do X, Y, Z because I know this person believes in me. And there's a saying that says, you won't get the energy to do something until you actually do it. So you have to feel yourself into doing it. So once you start, let's say if your goal is to go to college, but you necessarily don't believe in it, find someone that believes in you and then start doing the process. So start improving your grades, start going through the process. And the more you do it, the more you're gonna get the energy and the feeling that you're doing it, and eventually the belief will come. But if you just sit there, the belief will not come. Mm-hmm. So once you start doing it, and you start doing it, ultimately the belief will come. Just like as I shared with you earlier, if I never took the step to develop my speaking skills, I could sit there, but because if I didn't take any actions, I would never actually develop into a better speaker, because I would have still had the same belief. But the more you do it, the more you get better at it, and the more comfortable you feel, the more confident you feel, and the more you develop that belief in yourself.
Okay, the next question asks, how do you overcome failure thoughts?
One of the faster way or best ways to do that is to think of success. So this is why we recommend journaling, because oftentimes we're programmed to look at our failures, and a lot of times we minimize our success or even the small success because we just want to celebrate the big wins. So one of the ways to overcome failure thoughts is to go back. So when was the last time you experienced a success? And because oftentimes when we experience success, because it's not as big as we thought it would be or we wanted it to be, we don't see it as success. So that's one of the best ways you can do it to do that. And also another way to overcome that is, so failure, oftentimes people see failure as like a death sentence. Failure, we often say failure is not final. It's just one instance. So maybe you failed this time, but what you have to do, one of the ways to fix that is to see, well, what was it that I do, or what was it I didn't do that caused me to fail, and how can I learn from that failure? Because once you learn from that failure, you're probably not going to repeat the same mistake. So one of the ways to also overcome failure is to see what you can learn and gain from that failure so you can overcome it.
Okay, and the last question asks, what helped you realize your self-image?
couple things. One of the things is, as I started to exercise and take action to become better, develop better self-image, one of the things that made me realize that I was on the right track is people started telling me, people saying, well, you are more confident, you are more, you like more you, if that makes sense. Because it's like I wasn't trying to be something that I wasn't, I was being true to myself. And so I think it also goes back to self-acceptance. So you can tell when someone is being a phony. So when someone is pretending to be something that they're not. So almost everybody can detect that from a mile away. So as you start taking self-acceptance, start believing yourself and accepting yourself for who you are, and you take the steps to become who you want to be, you yourself is going to believe that, and other people is going to believe that. They're going to see that. They're going to recognize that. So that was, for me, that was the biggest thing when I started noticing it, and also other people that know me, and sometimes people that didn't really know me, and they just see you, and it's the way you go about yourself, they recognize that there's something about you. And it was like proof or confirmation that the things I was doing were working.
Okay, well, that's all the questions that the student asked. Is there any final message that you want to leave them with before we wrap up?
I just reiterate what I've been saying is, when I was I found out about this about 6 years ago, and I kept thinking to myself, I wish when I was in high school or even middle school, someone had introduced this concept to me. I probably would have been far more successful than I am today, because this is so critical. Oftentimes, in those years, we're so impressionable. So and unfortunately, oftentimes people in power would make those statements or just judgment about us that can literally change the path of our life. So who is someone to say, well, you never will be anything in your life? Like, who gives them that authority or that power? But oftentimes, because they're in a position of authority or power, we believe it and we take it to heart. And sometimes that, like, I've heard stories of people that ruin their life for like 40, 50 years, and eventually they find somebody, or they had something happen in their life, and that kind of like changed that trajectory of their life. But they already lost like 40, 50 years. And the other thing I would say is, never allow just one person negative opinion of you or judgment of you become your reality. So it's just one person. So you ultimately control who you are, who you become. So I know it's tough, it's hard, and oftentimes the people that's supposed to love you and protect you and care for you, oftentimes those are the people that are passing those negative judgment. But always remember, it's just one person. Never allow that one person to have that much control and power over your life. It's your life. You are in control of your life.
All right, well, Patrick, we want to say thank you. Fabi, I know that you have some announcements, so you can go ahead and take over, Fabi. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you for having me.
Does it sound okay, or can you still hear that noise?
Yeah, you sound good.
Okay. Okay, guys, I'm going to send the survey in the chat box. And then we have the 2 winners of last week's giveaway are Legemi St. Cyr and Vanessa Messereau. So we'll email you all the info for the gift cards. And then on Wednesday, we're going to have Jonathan Jackson, and he's going to be talking a little bit about entrepreneurship. So we'll email you the invite for that as well, you guys. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. And we'll see you Wednesday.
See you Wednesday. Congrats to the winners.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Patrick.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone. Have a great day.